Well, hi everybody. I'm going to make a start this morning. I'm not getting much verbal response, but I need to, obviously, if you can hear me and you want to chip in at any time, the meeting or the muting is unlocked, so you can hear me. You can speak to me. Today we're going to look at Unit 1. It's research and academic writing. Now, it's quite a big area in the qualification, and it's looking at the way you actually make and do some research and write it up in an academic fashion. This will help with all the other units that you're going to do as well. So I need to look at a couple of things. So we'll look at first the way the unit's set up. So learning objective 1 to 5, you've got a scenario. For this unit, there is no specific scenario. Instead, you're required to write a literature review and research proposal for a topic of your choice. Now, this is one way of looking at the project. The other way is to actually do the literary review yourself, and this is the way we're going to do it on this process. Using different sources of information, journals, books, newspapers, or a website, review the literature around the topic that you're going to choose. So it can be something that is a question that needs to be answered. It could be something in your everyday work that needs to improve. It could be, let's say, for instance, we just did communication, didn't we? You could do a communications review of how communications operate within your particular organisation and where that can be improved. So you can set up a research topic to do some research into that, to find out what works and what doesn't work as well as it could, and develop that. Now, to do that, you will have to read very much the same material that you've read for Unit 3, but you will have to then log that material, and show a review of which literature you've used to cover each of the particular topics. So your literature review will be a whole host of things, as we said before. When reviewing literature, ensure you do proper citation. Now, there is a piece on here, if we go back, on Harvard referencing. Now, what you'll need to do is make sure you've read that up first, because the way that's set out is important, and it will be ultra important to get that right on this one. So this is task 1. You should also have a reference list at the end of your literature review. So that means putting it together into a Word document, right? And then gathering all the information. Say why firstly, you've got to decide on the topic of your choice and decide why you're going to use that for the assignment, why you're going to use this particular topic and why it needs to be investigated or certainly researched anyway. Once you've decided on that task, then you can start to gather the material together for the literature review of the subject. Now, this can be quite extensive because there's a difference between when you've completed your review, you will reference them all, using the Harvard referencing system, and you should have a list at the end of your literature review. Now, there's a difference between a literature review and or a referencing system and the bibliography. With a referencing system, you use only the material that you've actually looked at and seen. In a bibliography, you need to, everything you've even looked at, even if you've not used any of the material in your work, then that, if you've read through some of that, then that needs to be added in the bibliography. Now that's a fairly short task. Once you've the biggest point or the biggest area here is deciding on what area you're going to do your research in. Now, as always, I will suggest that it's something that you're fairly close to. That's something that's of interest to you, and you have an interest in a particular subject. Like I've just mentioned, as an example, is a communication system within your organisation. Another one that's used quite a lot today, because it's becoming more and more mainstream now, is environmental circumstances. How environmentally friendly your company is and what the environment policy is. So you can look at that, you can use that as a basis for finding out a research project around the environmental circumstances of the organisation that you're working with. I'm just doing a check. Can everybody hear? Has anybody responded yet? Someone. It just peaked, yeah, it's just peaked a couple of times, so somebody's moving in and out. Just make sure your mic's switched on your system, and make sure that you've not muted yourself. Just check up on that. And of course, if anybody's got any questions at any point through the process, just butt in. You don't have to ask, put your hand up or anything. Just say, yeah, I've got a question. So what I'm going to do is move on to task 2, because task 2's got quite a bit of work to it, and once you've completed the first bit, it will then move straight into it. So after conducting your literature review, you're required to present a research proposal explaining the aims and objectives of your research, as well as explaining the method which is appropriate for your research and why the other methods are not suitable. In any research project, there are 2 types of data that you will collect. One is primary data, which is data collected by yourself in terms of what you've read and what you've understood. The secondary data is the material that you'll be reading from, yeah, and that is any other research that's been done into the subject of your choice. You can use some of that material or data from that material, but that is classed as secondary data, yeah. So if you're trying to find out, for instance, as an example, the communications one, you could have, or somebody could have done at some stage a communications audit for the company. Now, if that's in place and you can look at that, that can be classed as secondary data that you can use towards your research. You could also discuss any challenges that you'll have or will face during your research, and in particular, focus important is of being self-motivated and learning on your own. This is one of the points with research. It is purely self-motivated work. In other words, A, you've got to decide on a subject. B, you've then got to look at the material that's available within that area that you can read that would give you information to determine which way you're going to go with it. So one of the issues or one of the challenges it will have is working alone. Now, as usual, on the method of learning that you're doing here, which is blended learning, you're not actually on your own. Unlike uni, where you get a lecture and then you go away and work on your own, if you've got issues or anything you want to discuss or questions that you're not sure about, you can contact us in the usual way via the email system, and just contact us and say, yeah, I'm looking at 1.3 or 1.4 and I'm not quite sure what to do. And then your tutor will obviously give you some feedback on that to point you in the right direction as such. So although you have to be self-motivated in terms of deciding what you want to do and how you're actually going to go about it. The support will be there just the same to make sure that you can, complete it in that way. Certainly, some of the questions I usually get early on is, this is the subject I've chosen. Do you think it's valid? Fine. If that's a question you've got, then yeah, that can be done by email quite easily. You can send me what you want to do and why you're going to do it. And then, if you're asking, then is that a valid research project? I can then give you some feedback onto that as to say, yeah, it is, or well, you could modify it and include such and such a thing, then it would be okay. So, as per usual, the backup's there should you need it. Also, there is quite a bit of material on the Moodle platform. So I want to make sure that all of you have access to Moodle. So if you've got issues with this, I would ask you to contact Eilish at admin at ukversity.co.uk. Let's go back to So I've got a small PowerPoint on here. We're going to look at some of it, perhaps not all of it, on the LO1. So it's understand the use of different sources of information and research formulation. This one is particularly aimed at marketing research, and some of it is confusing or can be confusing because it's looking at just one subject. Your subject does not need to be about marketing. It can be on totally different. As I've mentioned, it could be communication systems, it could be the environment, it could be any of the policies that your company or organization has that needs to be researched, or you feel that needs to be researched and possibly improved. So a definition of the research, the classifications of it, the process, the nature of marketing research, supplies and services, careers in that. I'll be able to look at that one. That is a piece further back. This gives a better overview of what any research project is about. So you've got your research, identifying the problem, or the identification of the research project itself. Now that could be market potential research. It could be the share of the company's market that needs to be researched. It could be the characteristics, like how the marketing is done within your organization. It could be an analysis of sales research or forecasting to say what's going to happen soon, and looking at the actual business trends within your organization. So any of those areas can formulate your research project. So once you've gone into that, it will then provide you with the reading material you need to look at that's going to cover that. It could be a problem-solving research. There could be a specific problem within your organisation. Those of you that have done some marketing, it's got the segments of the market research. It could be the research into the actual product itself, how it's promoted, and it could be how it's actually distributed as well. So whether it's, for instance, it may be, I'll try and think of one now offhand. Yeah, if you've got a product that you actually sell through normal channels. It could be that you're looking at to start distributing that through the internet, and how you can actually do that, whether it would be better to offer the material or the product online through your own business, or whether you'll be able to join into something like Amazon, where they would actually put the product and advert on for you, and then you would just pay them a certain amount of money to actually do that, and you would get the sales just in the normal way. So yeah, that could be research, a research idea into why your company is using or not using the internet, and how it can be improved. It could be that they are already using it through their own website and it's not that successful. It may be looking at to join a larger organization like Amazon, who could then do much of that work for yourself, but obviously there'd be an offset of costs. So the research would need to look at that to decide which would be the best method. Some of this is actually, so on problem solving research, you can look at whether you would use price cuts. So you look at pricing policies. You look at elasticity of demand. Yeah. What happens to summer and winter sales and things like that. Yeah. So using any of these areas in your own context is valid at all times. Yeah. Hang on a minute. Right. Daniel's just called. Anybody can see the chat screens come up now. And this applies to everybody. I've got the system open to all of you. Everybody can should be able to hear me. So by all means use chat, and I was just going to put on there. You can see the chat screens come up. Now, you can all use the chat screen if you need to. You just click on this bubble at the top here if you want to say something and actually use that. But just as I'll repeat what I put on there, I've got you on open mic at this end, so everybody can chip in at any time. If you can't hear me, then I need to know. When there's an issue with hearing or seeing, I need to know about it. But you can, this little button here at the top is the bubble, is for chat. So he's written to me, my mic's not working. It's only on this meeting for some reason. He's probably switched it down. Yeah. I've just made sure I'm here. Nah, he's got a problem. Okay, I'll continue. Thanks. I'll close that. Right. I'm just going to bring up the actual unit specification as well now, because although the scenario just gives you the information what to do, and obviously that's covering those as well. So it's distinguish different sources of information used in academic writing. Evaluate the benefits of using different sources of information when compiling academic writing. And explain how to formulate research aims, objectives, and questions. Understand the use of different sources of information and research formulation. This is where I mentioned before that you've got primary and secondary data that you will produce during your literature review or to source your idea for a research project. Be able to conduct a basic literature review. So this is where you actually review the literature using a range of sources. But again, before that, you have decided on your topic. And like I said, if there's an issue or you're not sure about the topic, by all means, drop me an email, tell me what you're going to do, and we'll work it from there. So 1 and 2, and a little bit of 4, produce a piece of academic writing, or explain the importance of avoiding plagiarism and academic misconduct, and produce a piece of writing applying the Harvard referencing system. So that's what you will do, because when you've finished the literary review, you will actually put your references from the material you've used on some of there. So that will cover 4.2. And of course, you'll have produced a piece of writing to explain what you were going to do. So that, again, that will cover 4.2. One of the things in the Harvard referencing system is looking at avoiding plagiarism and academic misconduct. Right, sometimes this is done on purpose and will be picked up, by the way. We use a plagiarism checking sheet, a system that will check for plagiarism at the end of each of the documents or units that you produce during the qualification. Now, sometimes it's done accidentally, or a lot of times it's done accidentally by not correctly using the material. One of the best ways of avoiding it altogether, I've found, is that you will read a piece that you've selected for a particular piece of data. Instead of paraphrasing from it, make some notes as to what it says. And then when you've made your notes, write your piece from your notes. That way, it will have separated itself from the original material sufficiently to avoid doing it accidentally. So that's the best way I can actually explain to you of doing that. I've used it with lots of students now, and they really appreciate how that actually works. So that will cover 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 4, 2. So that's task 1 alone will cover those. Yeah. The way that's presented at task 2 will cover 1.3, 3.1, 3.2, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. So in task 2, once you've done your review and you've got your material together and you've discussed the challenges that you will have with the research, you need to make a formal PowerPoint presentation. That will have an explanation of your subject area and the objectives, the methods you're going to use for your research, the challenges you are likely to face in your research, and reflections on your learning techniques to complete the research project. So again, presentation, 10 minutes. Now, that doesn't require very many slides. If you think about it, you put a slide up and it will take you approximately 3 minutes to explain what's on the slide and talk around it, yeah? So that would say you probably only need 3 or 4 slides. In actual fact, you will probably need about 8. Any presentation at this level will require roughly 8 slides. So if you use that as a guide, it may be slightly less, it may be only 6, but it certainly won't need more than 8. So that's just a guide towards that. I think that's sufficient work to be going on for now. What I would remind you, if you produce some work, like I say, if you decide on a research subject and you want to just check over that with me first, by all means, send it by email and I'll pick that up and I'll give you some feedback. As you work through the program, as you work through the process, and you complete task 1, then send the work through to learnerworks@ukversity.co.uk. That will then find me, and I will respond to you through my works email. So if you're all happy with that now, I will close the meeting at this point and thank you for your attendance. Bye now.